Emigration is such a highly charged topic that falls into two distinct categories: active and passive. The left, who relies on ethnic, religious, cultural, economic and sexual minorities for support, are for the most part active. The right, who consist of predominantly white, religious, cultural, economic and sexual majorities, have up until recently been passive. However, this trend is changing. Before I dive any deeper into this subject, let me not waste any more left-leaning person's time by expressing my values. I tend to lean towards conservatism. Why? Because I'm a white, straight, culturally Christian male, and therefore by default find myself in the crosshairs of the ever-growing minority's contempt. I will not apologise for defending my rights, culture, religion, economic philosophy, sexuality or ethnicity. On the global democratic stage, my views will be seen as centre-right to right on the political spectrum, just like the NDA coalition in India, the largest democracy in the world. Unlike India, however, people of European origin are intellectually assassinated for expressing their constitutionally protected right to freedom of expression. Not to state the obvious, ethnomasochism is a phenomenon practiced uniquely by the peoples of European descent. These ethnic groups routinely rank as the most tolerant on the global index, except paradoxically when it comes to their own group. All of this might be music to the ears of the right. However, there will have to be sacrifice on our part in the short to medium term. In order to deal with the challenges caused by globalization and the resulting emigration, we must first understand what is motivating it. I will list these in order of relevance. A. Economics. B. Political gain. Although it can make numerical sense on paper to import taxpayers to fund the growing pension pot and welfare state, it is a fundamentally flawed concept for two core reasons. To assume that arguably good-willed economic maximums are detached from political and economic and social consequences is somewhat devoid of reality. The fact remains immigration itself, driven by economics, was the single biggest factor for the electorate when voting for the recent Brexit and Trump campaigns, which in turn have economic consequences that cancel out the intended positive net gains. Automation is the biggest issue facing the economy today, not the pension pot. Simply put, we cannot educate our way out of this scenario, simply because the higher the education, the more diversely affected the educated are, as they are designing and developing the very systems that will one day eventually replace their jobs. The net result being, rather than importing taxpayers, we are in fact importing net tax receivers. This is probably the most sinister aspect of mass migration, as national political parties capitalise on immigrants' voting bias towards the left, ultimately using them as pawns, whether that be consciously or not, to forward their long-term agenda. This is actively practiced by the left for obvious reasons, and passively by the right, who believe they have everything to lose and nothing to gain by confronting this political issue. Since the left have everything to gain, and the right see this is at their expense, we see growing political polarization. This natural chemical reaction to identity politics will unfortunately someday hit critical mass. Above all, it is the totalitarian response an individual receives if they even question the ethics of mass migration that I find most disturbing, which proves there is something of an intellectual emigration away from Western values. For instance, white America is told it has to accept mass unchecked migration because of slavery, Europeans because of colonialism, and Irish people because they themselves have historically been immigrants. Therefore, why don't the hard left and ethnic groups own up to the fact that a large part of the motivation is a visceral contempt for a particular ethnic group, as diversity ultimately means less white people, does it not? Not to point out the obvious, but presently the most stable, peaceful, prosperous societies were built by majority white Christians. As discussed in previous posts, we don't know if these systems work if that homogeneity is removed. However, we will have conclusive proof in the near future via the Swedish model. Surely Ireland, above all nations, understands the long-term implications of forced supplanting of diverse cultures. Ultimately, I have no issue with innumerable amounts of minorities on the condition that they remain as a multiple exactly that in a political context. I will not be willing to hand over the reins to what I consider the greatest geopolitical system yet known to man, to a diverse majority until I see concrete evidence they have proven themselves ethically fit to run such a sophisticated operation. It would be irresponsible and disrespectful to my cultural, religious and ethical ancestors to do so. This, of course, is based on the assumption that diversity will not be implemented forcefully.